Oh, hi guys, Tasman here. I thought I would shoot a quick video. I know it's been a long time since I've been online, but I've just had a lot going on with life. It's kept me busy, and also a lot of emphasis goes to relaxing and taking care of my body and my needs. And relaxing is a big part of that. I think I've stated on my channel that I do have multiple sclerosis, very minor, in that I've sort of figured out what caused it and changed my lifestyle drastically in order to stop it getting worse. And so far it seems to be working. But anyway, that's not what I'm here to talk about. I wanted to do a quick update on my channel just to let my subs know that I'm still here. I seem to have had the same number of subscribers for a long time now, so you guys are so patient. It's not funny. But I thought I'd better shoot a video so you know I'm not dead or anything like that. So where am I at now? I'm in Tasmania in the middle of winter, so not a lot of outdoor activities going on. I spend most of my time just sitting in front of my computer, surfing YouTube, trying to entertain myself around the house, housework, bit of gardening, maintenance on the vehicle, just little stuff, keeps me busy. I don't work anymore thanks to the MS, so I just try and put my energy, what little energy I have, I put elsewhere. But anyway, in regards to today's video, I just wanted to talk about the boats. That's the main focus of my channel. I've been building model boats since I was a very young teenager. I was lucky that I inherited some blueprints that were used by a relative many years ago, and those blueprints were passed down to me as a teenager, and from that point I got involved in building models using those blueprints, and I've built quite a few from those same blueprints. And it's been a long life. The original blueprints that I had got damaged, and I lost some of them. There was about 7 sheets in total, and I lost about 4 out of the set through damage. So it took me about 20 years to find a replacement set, which I did. I now have in my possession, and so I can now keep building the models that I used to build when I was a teenager. I've still got one model that I built in 1998 sitting in my wardrobe. It's in the middle of a rebuild. I think I showed that on one of my last uploads, just a quick glimpse that I'd stripped the boat down in order for a rebuild, because it was only built of balsa wood. It's a very soft hull, so I've stripped it down and I'm going to fiberglass it. I'm in the middle of that at the moment. I'm going to fiberglass the hull so it's got longevity. Well, that's lasted since 1998, but it's never been used. It's been sitting in a cupboard for most of its life. I used it briefly for a time when I was a teenager. Had it under radio control, and I've got photos of that. But the point is, life progresses as you get older. You get girlfriends. So eventually, I had a son. So life evolves, and it just sort of distracts you from what you really want to do. But the modelling and the building of models is something that's been with me for a long time, and it's something I can still do now, thankfully. And I will be getting back into it soon. But at this point, not to get distracted, I do apologise, I get distracted very easily in conversation. But the reason for this video is just to show you guys that I'm still about. I still want to make videos. One of the problems I've got is the computer I'm using is so damn old, it's not compatible with the modern camera phone that I'm using. I've figured out a way around that, but it takes the edge off it a little. It's the quality dies off a little. I have to modify the current video format and actually knock it down to a Windows media file, so then I can upload it through my computer. The computer's just so old and out of date. It's just an old laptop, but it's old, out of date. It still works, so I'm using that. I can't afford to buy a new one. I tried a couple of months ago, and that fell flat. The computer I got was just an older model again, but it had the functions that I wanted. But again, it was just nothing but trouble. It just turned into a money pit very quickly, so I put a stop to that and just went back to using the laptop. Even though it's old, it's reliable. But again, it's not compatible with modern technology, so in that respect I figured out how I can get the videos to change the format so I can then upload it through the computer. So I'll do that soon enough. You'll see this video sometime tonight, the day I shoot it. So it is currently early September here in Tasmania. As I said, it's basically winterised. It's just horrible, windy, cold every day. More often than not it rains. Out of a 7-day week we might get 3 or 4 days rain, which just puts a real dimmer on any activities you've got planned outdoors. So at this stage I'll give you guys a look now, otherwise I'll sit here and prattle on for way too long. That is the current project that you guys are familiar with. I might grab a chair actually so I can sit my butt down. My back doesn't like being hunched over for too long. I've got the body of a 80-year-old man and I'm only in my early 40s. But anyway, this is the model that you were focusing on last. The last few uploads I did were focused on this little guy now. It's basically done, which is the good news. If I come around here and give you a bit of perspective. The daylight plays havoc with this camera too, so just bear with me. We'll try and give you guys a really good look. Let it focus. So the boat itself is basically done. I've got a temporary cradle for it, only because I was gifted a couple of model boats a few months ago. So I sold one and kept the cradle. So in theory, I had 2 boats and only 1 cradle at the time. So I kept the cradle from the other, blah blah blah. Not to prattle on, this one's now got a decent cradle to sit in. Now in regards to it being finished, the sails are done and up. It's a bit of a dodge job, but to my satisfaction it'll do the job. The boat itself is done. Paintwork didn't quite go to plan. I'm not sure if the camera will focus in. Yeah, there we go, you can see the cracking. How's that for a hideous paint job? Just goes to prove that I can paint, but at the same time, as good a job as you do, there's always some little imperfection or something that fucking goes wrong. So I think the problem here is that initially I put the white enamel paint on the hull. I decided not to go with that colour in the end, so after a few months of hardening, I've repainted it. But the issue there is I think the enamel still wasn't completely cured, and as a result it's cracked the surface, a little bit of crow's foot. Rather big, wide cracks. As you can see, still got the shine on it. It's nice looking paintwork from a glance, but it's now effectively a 10-foot paint job, so at a glance from a distance 10 feet away it looks beautiful. But it is what it is. I'll probably repaint it in the future, but you know, I've spent way too much time mucking around with this thing to keep going over my tracks. At this point in time it's just sitting here on a subwoofer gathering dust until summer. I've not bought a radio control unit for it yet. I will do that as we get closer to summer, probably around December, January, February. So we're still a few months off that yet. But the boat itself is effectively finished. I have a servo unit sitting under that fiberglass box. That's a little fiberglass box you would have seen me make. It's a very thin-walled fiberglass, and that is screwed down via the little screw with the grommet. I've just got a simple aluminium bracket under there which is screwed to the deck, and that aluminium bracket in turn holds the servo upside down on top of the rudder post, which is right here, the metal rudder post. And the bracket is designed in such a way that I can then put just a small screw through the back to hold the box and everything down. So in the end, I still need to put a little bit of paint on this fiberglass. That's just a bit of fiberglass leftovers from this box. I've used that just to seal the hole, because once the servo's fitted, the wiring is running through under the seat in the cockpit, through to the cabin. All that is in place. I think I can pop that off, give you guys a look in a sec. But that is done. Bit of scrap fiberglass to fill that hole now that the wiring is through, so I've glued that down. It just needs a coat of paint to make it match the deck. As for this, we have the switch for this servo mounted under here. So that's easily accessible with a plug for the battery. But unfortunately, in the last 10 years or so since I've bought electronics for radio controlled toys, the world has changed. Radio control units are a lot different than what they used to be. You don't use, what are they called, crystals. You don't use the insertable crystals anymore. I was all set to go out and buy radio control gear and go about it that way, but I was quickly schooled that technology has changed, so at some point in the future I've got to go out and spend a little over $100 and get a hand controller and a servo. But as I said, I'm leaving that till summer. This is not the time to be outside playing with model boats. The weather is not conducive to that, and with my MS, I don't like being out in the cold and the wind. There's not many outdoor activities that I enjoy enough to be able to stand out there in the cold and wind to enjoy. So I'm just waiting for some better weather, and then we'll get this little fella back off the shelf and get into it. But it is effectively done. I'm reasonably happy. Let me get out of the light. I'm reasonably happy with the way it came out. Again, during the building process, I've sanded a little bit too much off the bow, so it actually curves back on the slightly wrong angle. But it is what it is. It's solid built. It's actually made from 3-ply. So there's quite a bit of effort involved in sheathing the hull, skinning the hull. But I got it done between the plywood and some fiberglass. I nearly said flywood. So between the plywood and the fiberglass, I was able to get the hull curves and everything nice and smooth. But in the process of getting everything shaped down, if we stand right at the back here, if we get down level with the boat, you can see the bow, the stem head. It could be a little further, it could protrude a little further, but again, just in the process of me refining the shape of the hull, I just kept sanding off more and more bloody material, and I did the same thing with the little bulwark here, because that sits proud of the deck. You can see if I put my finger in there, it's got a slight little bulwark on each side, and one side I sanded down a little bit more than the other, but I'm not an expert. I pretty much know what I'm doing because I've been building these things since I was a kid, now in my early 40s. So I can pretty much bang one together. It's a very time consuming effort. In the shortest amount of time I can probably build one of these in about 3 months if I've got everything I need, all the tools and equipment at my fingertips. But it is what it is. This project started about 3 years ago now. It's hit the water a couple of times just for tests, but it's never actually been sailed under radio control. So we're still waiting for that big day. It's amazing that a model yacht can take so damn long, but the reality is I was fit and healthy when I started this project, and then life kind of changed. My multiple sclerosis came back and started to take hold. I started to lose energy and couldn't do the things that I did before, so life started to change, and unfortunately the modelling took a bit of a back seat for a while. I got into it sporadically, but again, I would only do it when I had the energy levels and the motivation. The mental motivation wasn't there. But we're slowly getting back into it. As I said before, I was gifted a couple of model boats a while back, and one of them has kept me busy. So enough of little surf there. So again, this is SV Surf. Now the reason I have that name is this boat is built strong and tough, so I can use it down the beach. I thought that was a pretty radical idea. Most model boats you'll see just on a little pond or a lake. I want to go one step further. I wanted something that I can actually take down the beach and potentially dismast it in the surf if it comes to that. That could be interesting. Who knows? It just adds that extra level of excitement to sailing a model boat, and no doubt I'll draw a crowd. You always seem to draw a crowd. No matter where you go, you will draw a crowd of some sorts while you're sailing a boat like this. And adults are just as interested as kids, funnily enough. Quite often you'll see adults drag their kids over to have a look. Oh, come and look at the model boat. It's not for the kids' sake, it's because the parents want to see it. And they're just blown away when they know the history. It's not something that's bought off a shelf. This has been 3 years in the making. It still hasn't hit the water for its maiden voyage. But that will happen towards the end of this year. Hopefully. So anyway, that's little SV Surf. She's basically done, just sitting on the shelf waiting for RC gear, final fit out. Everything else is basically done. It's going to be a very simple basic setup. So self-tacking jib and mainsail, and I will only need to utilise one servo to control the rudder, and that will be it. So you just have one stick. You use one stick on a hand controller, and that is it. Just enough to steer the boat. You don't need to do anything else. It just minimises the things that can go wrong and keeps everything nice and simple, and I've always done it that way. I don't really need the other channel for anything. I just need one channel to steer the boat, and that's it. And you rely on Mother Nature and the wind to get it back. So anyway, might be a little bit dark. No, that's alright, you can see that alright. So this is one of the 2 yachts that I was gifted. Dates back to the mid-90s these things were produced. It's just a blow mould plastic thingy. I don't know who sold them at the time, whether that was a Kmart job or whether it was through modelling shops in particular. I've seen another couple being sold on the internet locally in the past few months, but other than that I've not seen a lot of them. She's substantially bigger. If I get back here, give you a bit of perspective. These little surfs sitting in the corner, and then we have this behemoth. Substantially bigger, but I like this one. The second one I was given, the other one, this is one of the 2 I was given. The other one was actually a little too big. It was very awkward to get in and out of my vehicle, so I opted to sell that one off nice and cheap, give someone a bit of thrill. And I kept this one only because it can be put in my vehicle with the mast erected. Don't need to disassemble anything to move it around. It's easy enough to drop the keel off, so that way there's no dead weight. The only weight in this model is the keel. The big blob of lead, authentic lead that I have painted just to match the blue pinstripe. Only because I bought some paint to do some touch-ups on a vehicle and I had that left over, so I thought, yeah, why not? It's a very similar colour to the pinstripe. So this little guy has been getting a fair bit of attention. As I said, I've been building up a little bit of mental motivation to get back into the models. So I've been plodding along with this one. I bought myself a small bandsaw. One of the joys of life is that I had to move house about 3 times around Christmas earlier in the year, around the beginning of this year, which really threw a spanner in the works. So everything stopped. Everything got packed into boxes and stored away for about 3 months until I settled again. So at some point after I'd settled in my new place, I was gifted 2 model boats. I sold one, kept this one. So I then went out and bought myself a used bandsaw, just a small benchtop job. So then I had the ability to cut up timber. As I said, I've got plans to build more model boats in the future, so I had to get a little bandsaw to help me with that. But in the meantime, I had this guy to fix up, so I've been just plodding around, doing a few little odd jobs. Now, because it's so old, I said it dates to about 1992, I think. I did a bit of research online. There's not a lot of information out there, but I traced them back to about the early to mid-90s. And this one was starting to show its age. The hull itself is a little bit yellow in colour. Probably doesn't show up that well on the video, but when you compare it to like if you start removing deck fittings, like there was a cover over the rudder post down here. When you remove that, I don't know if you should be able to see it. You should be able to see the difference. I've got a little light up here. Let me flick that on. It might illuminate this thing a little better. So I don't know if it'll show up on the camera, but this colour is a lot darker than that colour, for the simple fact that this was protected by another piece of plastic that sat across here to cover that rudder post. And once I took that off, you could see the colour difference. So the sun's affected it over time, and I thought it might have made some of the plastics a bit brittle, and I was correct. Some of these original deck fittings, which actually look like this, if I get in here nice and close, so these little deck fittings here, I don't know if the camera wants to do me justice, it might not, but these little things, just a little plastic post with a hole in it, and they are the original deck fittings. We had those here on the deck, and they were all brittle. You only have to touch them and they snap off. So I've made up some aluminium fittings. Again, I was able to use the bandsaw just to cut this very, very thin aluminium. So I've been able to cut all those into shape. And I replaced the stem head fitting, the main shrouds, and I also replaced the aft shroud. And I've modified the boom, so it's on a self-tacker. That is a piece of, I use what I've got laying around. For example, this is a piece of stainless steel from an old windscreen wiper blade, because it's a high-grade stainless steel. It's perfect for the job. So again, I've used
a couple of small bits of aluminium to hold that stainless onto the deck, just with a stainless steel screw in it, and that is sufficient enough to hold this. You can basically pick the boat up with this. It's quite solid, and I'm happy with that because it's stainless, aluminium, nothing's going to rot or rust, I should say. I'm still a little concerned about some of these mast fittings, the spreaders. They may be a little bit brittle with age, but we'll soon know when we get it on the water. But initially I knew these fittings were all stuffed. They were brittle from being in the sun for many years, so I've replaced all those. So we've got some aluminium bracket and some stainless steel screws. I think I put a little bit of silicone underneath them, so that way nothing leaks. It didn't have a deck cover for this when I got it, so I've just simply used a bit of plastic. There is actually a bit of plastic sitting there. And again, I've just glued another bit of aluminium that I've cut to shape so that can slide on and off. The bit of plastic is an ideal fit for that. It's actually the bottom of an old orange juice bottle, but it was slightly bowed in the corners because it came off the bottom of the bottle. So it was the perfect fit for that. It just snugs into the corners nice and tight, so that'll be sufficient to sail. And again, at the back it's actually curved, so it moves downwards and hugs the deck. So if any water comes across that, it'll just sheet straight off into the cockpit. So initially she's about ready to go. We are gathering a bit of dust. She's been sitting here for a while. But this little boat has given me a bit of motivation to get back into the modelling. So for the last few months I've just been doing little bits and pieces, gathering some materials. I've also created a manual furled jib. So I've used a humble sewing machine bobbin, if I can come in here and get the right angle. A humble sewing machine bobble. And again a bit of aluminium bent to shape. It's hard for this bloody camera, it's not going to focus. The camera doesn't like. Just a piece of aluminium bar bent to shape to form that. So that then holds the sewing machine bobbin. It's got a little screw through the centre of that bracket into the bobbin, and in the centre of the bobbin is a piece of dowel which runs all the way up to the top of the mast just to a fishing swivel. So it can turn freely, although it's still, it's got a fair bit of tension. It holds the jib straight, holds the jib nice and taut. But the bonus is you can actually furl the jib up by hand and then just lock it off with this little clip from a fishing lure. So, a little bit of thought's gone into it. The idea is, I've noticed in the past, in years gone by, sailing model yachts, if the wind is a little too strong, sometimes they don't want to steer properly. They will tend not to want to respond to the rudder because there's too much wind on the jib, and they will not respond. So the idea is I put a little furler, designed a furler to fit on there so I can wind the jib up and basically make the jib disappear if need be, if the wind is too strong, so then I can just sail the boat under the mainsail. But what that does is it gives you a better ability to steer the yacht. And I mean, real yachts respond the same way. If you've got too much headwind, they don't respond to the helm. So I've had that in the past. That's why little Surf here just has a very, very small jib. Considering the size of the mast, the jib is only about a little bit over half the height of the mast. It's just enough to do the job, but not enough that it'll make it want to not respond to the helm when I wanted to steer it. So I don't like it when boats develop a mind of their own, especially when you've got no propeller, no engine. There is nothing under there. This boat relies solely on wind power, and I I rely solely on the wind to get it back to me when I'm sailing them. So that's some excitement in itself. So anyway, just a quick update there. Let the camera focus in. This is actually, the Victoria here is an Australia class yacht. I think she was based on that design. The Australia class of yachts. You can go and Google that. But I like the fact that it actually looks like a proper yacht. The other one was more of a speed machine, so I had no qualms in selling that one off and just keeping this one. But for the main reason, this one was a bit smaller and a bit more manageable. It's easy to put in the back seat of my car if I want to go to the lake or go somewhere and sail it for half a day. It's a lot easier just to pick it up, throw it in the back seat. As I said, you can unscrew the keel. Just one little bolt right there, a big long nut head that secures a bar that runs all the way down to the bottom of the keel. So if you undo that one simple lug, then undo that one simple fitting, the whole keel drops off, and the boat, there's basically no weight in it. The whole thing only weighs about 200 or 300 grams. All the weight is in that keel. So it's a little bit awkward to manhandle in and out of a vehicle because it's got that dead weight on the bottom. So all you can do is just undo that nut, drop the keel off, and then the boat basically weighs nothing. So it's a lot easier to move around and secure it in the car, so then I can go and have some fun for the day. But that will be in a future video. Let me spin back around here and pop you guys on the bench again. So I'm still here. The modelling is still progressing. It's just been winter. I'm not really interested in getting outdoors, doing a lot of outdoor activities, especially sailing boats. I'll leave that till summer so I can tolerate the wind so long as it's nice warm weather. So we'll leave it at that, guys. I just thought I'd do my subscribers the courtesy of a bit of an update. And you will see me again in the near future. I'm not sure when. I've still got a few things in mind. I've got to fix up my old model boat. I've got to get two radio control units for these two models now. But all of that in good time. So keep watching this space. Thanks for tuning in, guys.